Don't give these people credit for that. These aren't like end bosses. They're not finding that. He's not finding 10s here. Who's this guy? He's not finding 10s. Who's this guy? Don't call this bet. Don't give this guy your money. Don't need to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 4 of From Losing to Cruising. Last time in episode 3, we identified that Mark had quite a few issues with being able to judge the relative hand strength of his hand, relative to board texture, relative to the line the opponent has taken, relative to the opponent type, the pre-flop action, and all of these things. These are the skills that you have to work on, and I think I've said this to you before, Mark. If you can't get better at relative hand strength, it's really hard to know what the best thing to do is, because you need to know where you are before you can work out where to go. I think there's a quote about that. If you don't know which direction to take, then you don't know where you are or something. So yeah.
Geez, I wouldn't start from here anyway.
So you cringed when I pulled this hand up as our first hand of the day. How are you feeling about this one? 10-6 suited.
I'm not looking forward to this one. This is not good.
Are you feeling a bit of culpability here about your play and already feeling a bit cringy?
I was close to deleting this hand.
Don't ever delete a hand. Please don't ever delete a hand. Oh, some students have done that. You know how many times like I start a session and like in the past this happened a lot, and the student would be like, so things have been going great since I deleted my database and made a new one. It's like, yeah, you're still down 89 buy-ins though, you know, like you're still a losing player. You just ran good yesterday. Nothing is fixed, but we're going to fix stuff on this show. That's what we're all about, really fixing things, taking accountability, not leaving any rocks unturned. Okay, call is good pre. 1 street out of 1. Already indifferent here, right? Probably.
Yeah, this felt close.
I would say if you feel like it's close, theoretically, you might want to keep your eye out for something that could be different exploitatively. Did you know Villain 17, player type wise?
Yeah, there I'd about 400 hands on them, so they were laggy. 29, 21, 8 was the stats, so pretty.
I have ran those stats over 400 hands myself lots of times. I wouldn't be that quick unless you've seen them be really aggressive. I mean, you can easily run like 19, 16, or you can run 28, 24 over that sample. It depends what cards you're dealt. So I wouldn't jump to too much of a conclusion here. I don't even know that like calling people laggy is good for you just based on where some of your mental game leaks lie. I just think it might be like a little, I would ignore HUDs when they're reg. I would use HUD at first just to differentiate between regs and recreationals. And then if you see somebody over a massive sample or you see showdowns that indicates that someone's like too aggressive, it's okay to make a note of that there and then. But I wouldn't say this player's too aggressive because they're 29, 24. I think that's opening the door to justifying some of these fight tilt mental game leaks that we have. I would fold the flop against an unknown at your stakes. People may be shocked and that might be harrowing. The reason is that it's very easy to bet big here because you have a set or a straight or top pair or an overpair. But it's very hard as a recreational or weaker reg to remember to bet big with pocket fives here, which you should do. And I think the spot is under bluffed. I think it's too strong a range. I just get rid of the 10-6 immediately here against this position, against a random member of this pool, and that's an exploit, but not a huge one. So already I think the flop call might be losing against a lot of people in this pool. Yep, overbet's turn. I think with 2 pair now we have an easy call. Polarization error to raise this hand on this board, right, against the sizing.
Yeah.
We've talked before about polarization errors. We've talked about how we want to avoid over-aggressing with the middle of your range. This is the middle of your range against overbet. You probably do have more than a bluff catcher. You beat more hands than just bluffs, but you probably don't want to be raising here.
Yeah.
Agree with that? Anything else you would add about the turn and the way you were thinking about it?
No, I just thought that they have a very polarized range when they overbet, and I don't raise, so that was my thought process.
Yeah, that's good. It's not that you can't raise anything, like maybe if you have Queen Jack you can raise, but you definitely want to be very selective about where you begin value raising, and you want to begin value raising much higher up than this hand for sure. Good bluff catcher though, and maybe a bit more than a bluff catcher. They may be value betting something like aces here or something sometimes, so I'm okay with this. 9 big blinds on the river. Very curious.
That's what I thought. That's exactly
very strange. Very, very strange. Okay, interesting spot. Let me hear your completely off the cuff analysis with no help from me, and then I'll come in and tell you what I think afterwards.
I thought, wow, that is really strange. After polarizing on the flop, on the turn, I thought that's a really strange sizing. And I thought then that let's say in a lot of cases, this is bet size equals hand strength, and this is a weak top pair or something like that he just doesn't want to get value owned against better. So which is why I raised.
Okay, so you raised, in GTO speak, in theory speak, you raised for...
I raised for value.
Okay, good. So it's very important to differentiate that. First of all, you raised for value, right? So you made it 33, and you made a small raise.
I don't think I thought linearly here well enough, because he doesn't have many top pair after the.
So in other words, we've not taken turn into account enough here. We've ignored the fact that he's overbet.
Yeah.
And we've focused too narrowly in a blinkered vision way on just the river line in isolation.
Exactly.
Excellent analysis of your own play, very self-aware, very introspective. Completely agree. I think this is a call on the river after a turnover bet. If you want to get really like, oh, I'm boss poker player, I hand read, I know he has ace king, I play against ace king, I'm boss, I value raise. If you want to be like that in the chat, guys, go ahead. I don't think it's a raise though, because of the turnover bet. I think if he'd bet small on the turn and then done this, I would raise happily. But there's a few factors here. One is the board is soaking, like connected, hard to miss, like just lots of 2-pair possible here that beats you. I think you're gonna see a ton of 10-9 here, king 10, king 9, etc. here. Like you're just gonna see a lot of hands like that. You're also gonna see some top set that just doesn't think it has the blockers to bet bigger. That's for sure a hand you're gonna see. And you'll also see like the oddly played like monster sometimes as well. The other thing that's the nail in the coffin here for raising is that not only do you have to have a certain amount of equity, but villain has to be calling with one pair. Like not only does he have to have aces or ace king here, a decent amount, he has to call with them a decent amount. And I think putting all of those things together is too optimistic. This is definitely a call. The clue, as you said, is the overbet on the turn. You did think too narrowly. Villain's gonna have kings here.
Yeah, okay, I'm glad. I assessed, well done. I assessed it straight afterwards. I thought, what was I doing? He was really polarized. I should never have raised on that river.
I mean, he's less polarized when he sizes down on river, but he's still too polarized for you to raise bottom 2-pair after the turnover bet. So you have misplayed here. Is a large mistake. I don't know if I want to say blunder. It probably is a blunder, but a lot of people wouldn't realize it's a blunder. A lot of people watching this are like, okay, but I raise. There's nothing wrong with raise. Oh, why you say this? And guys, I'm sorry, but there is. This is not a good raise. And I know a lot of you would make it as well, because a lot of you would do the same thing that Mark has done here, and you would focus just on the river line and try and be like a psychic just based on that. And it's such a tempting thing to do. If we can rewind one street and just remember how we got here, we'll solve this. Remember, landing range is so important. What a hand to start with when we're thinking about relative hand strength. Our hand is relative to the texture, the pre-flop position, and villain's turn sizing, as well as his river sizing, not just his river sizing. This is an amazingly instructive spot for our mission today. Great. Excellent job though. You're very self-aware there, very insightful as to your own shortcomings. You're very insightful there. We all have dreams to be chilling in the sun, becoming the GOAT of online cash games. But how do we achieve such a dream? How do we get to the very top of the poker climbing frame? How do we avoid plummeting to the very bottom, or even roaming around eating off the ground? Well, one way we can do this, guys, is by getting really regular feedback and making sure that we're truly understanding the material that we're working our way through. The Carrot Poker School is great for this. It gives you feedback every step of the way. With every lecture, there comes a homework task with feedback by me. And also there's an exam per grade of the Carrot Poker School, which is 10 very meaty questions long. And we go into over an hour of me working in a solver, showing you why everything is the case and giving you feedback on your answers. To my knowledge, there aren't many other poker courses out there, and there never have been, that give you this opportunity. Don't underestimate the importance of feedback. Yes, the Carrot Poker School has hours and hours of footage. It's very meaty, it's very academic, and that's why we make sure that we test you and let you test yourself every step of the way. To pick it up, head over to carrotcorner.com and you can save £500 by grabbing our full scholarship today and getting grade 1, grade 2 and grade 3 all at the same time. Hope you enjoy the material, and let's get back to the action. Okay, kings. 4 bet. Okay, bet tiny with everything. Seems good. The thing is, it's not a polarization error to bet 10 big blinds here, because you're going to stop betting after that. You're not going to go like bomb, bomb, bomb. So a lot of people say, oh, you can't bet kings. Can't go ahead and bet the middle of my range. Can't do it. But you can, because you're making a tiny investment with this hand. It's not a lot. So you can absolutely bet here. He checks. Okay, we check again. He checks. Ugh. Yeah. What a card, huh? The reason I say what a card is that now jacks and tens probably won't call you, and now queens beats you, and now a flush beats you, so like really this is the worst card ever. Just check and fold against Pool, because Pool has to bluff with 10s now. See if they have to bluff with 10s, or they have to bluff with jacks. Don't give these people credit for that. These aren't like end bosses. Not finding that. He's not finding 10s here. Who's this guy? He's not finding 10s. Who's this guy? Don't call this bet. Don't give this guy your money. Don't need to do that. Sometimes I like to ask you what you think you should do, and sometimes I like to tell you what you should do, because it gets you thinking about what went wrong. Does my analysis make sense there? I know it was very kind of caricature and over the top, but does it make sense, like what I'm getting at?
Yeah, it does, yeah. When the queen comes, they're not betting those hands, so their value range gets really, or their range that I'm ahead of gets really narrow, that bets here once the queen comes.
So you have a bluff catcher. Again, let's start off in the proper protocol. Do you have a bluff catcher?
Yeah.
Yes, you don't beat a single value bet, do you?
Yeah.
No way in hell do you beat a value bet. That's absurd. What would they have to be bluffing with to bluff? Let's start there.
Pocket pairs below. Yeah, below
pocket pairs, right?
4s, 2s, 3.
Yeah, but the 3-bet you pre, so you have to be careful, right? They're not even really going to have, like, they're going to have 8s maybe. They're not going to have 7s or 5s in this position, really. Yeah. Remembering it's under the gun cutoff, right? So again, you can see how relative hand strength and hand reading and all of these things, they go full circle. They go way back to what happened at the start of the hand as well. If I knew my opponent could have 5s and 3s and 4s here, I would call, because I'd be like, okay, there's enough of those pairs that he only needs to find that sometimes. But if he only has 10s or jacks here, the odds of him bluffing those hands are microscopically low. Villain has to turn the bottom of his range into a bluff here. He isn't doing that. He's butchering the spot, probably. You're butchering the spot because you're calling the bottom of your range. You're calling the worst bluff catchers that you have. Okay, could he have king jack? Yes, but 2 of the 3 king jack suited are now gone because of your hand. So very bad bluff catcher. Under bluff world, you must fold. So now that we understand the relative hand strength, you have a bad bluff catcher in an underbluffed world. That equals a fold, that equation. In game, I want to extend my question here. What went wrong? And here's something that gives you a bit more accountability. How are you going to fix this next time you're in a similar spot? You don't have to get them all right, but next time you're in a spot like this, how will you improve your chances of getting it right? So double barrel question here.
I think what I did wrong in this hand is that I'm not ranging him through the hand again. So I'm not thinking back to pre-flop and bringing his range through each of the hoops.
Perfect analogy.
I'm not thinking about what does he need to be bluffing here. That doesn't enter my head. You know, what are his bluffs? So I'm not thinking about that in game. I'm thinking, to be honest, I may have thought here that he could be, I don't think he'd be value betting with a queen, but
that's absurd.
Yeah, the scare card, he could be bluffing. Yeah, that's the extent of it. So I'm not thinking through his range.
He could be bluffing. He could have king jack of diamonds. He could be bluffing with 8s. I'm not saying he can't be bluffing. If my criteria, my minimum criteria for folding is he can't be bluffing, then I'm calling in spots where I have 6% equity, 12% equity, 13% equity, 18% equity, all terrible. Your opponent can be bluffing. When you fold here, you may well be getting bluffed, but usually you won't be. And you'll be getting bluffed very rarely compared to the 28% of the time he's meant to be bluffing you. Villain will have ace-queen here, mostly. He'll have some ace-jack, but I'm going to guess he has ace-queen, because I'm in hand guessing mode today and I'm going to try and get them all right. I haven't seen this hand. I'm 1 for 1. Let's see if I can go 2 for 2. God damn it. I can dream, right? I can try. Aces is another hand he can have, but that's, again, it's only 3 combos. It's a bit discounted from previously. At least you didn't get stacked. Silver lining.
Yeah, I thought the same.
Yeah, but I mean, you should be just like escaping here, because on the river, it's just... The other thing is he's called flop. See that filtering he makes on the flop here? That's another one of the hoops that I should really have mentioned. Tens doesn't always call flop here. It might fold flop. So this is a criminally underbluff spot. When you put I want you to start recognizing the recipe for an underbluffed spot. Not much air available. Counterintuitive to find bluffs. Hoops have been jumped through, filtering is a card. Those 3 things together, they're going to spell disaster for bluff catching, and you are bluff catching a terrible hand to bluff catch. I want you to also pay attention next time you're in these spots to what it sounds like and what it feels like when you have a thought like you could be bluffing scare card, blah, blah, blah. What does the experience of having those thoughts sound like? Does it sound analytical? Does it feel analytical? Do you feel like I am analyzing? It feels emotional. So if something has an emotional character to it, I need you to practice dismissing it. Not necessarily discarding it, but putting it in a timeout little booth and just saying, okay, I've heard you thought process that sounds emotional. I've listened to you. I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to protect me against people bluffing me. I get it. So I'm going to put you over here. I'm going to clear my mind for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to think. I don't want you to solve this spot for the first 5 seconds of your time bank here. If you've got 30 seconds in your time bank, I want you to spend 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds just not acting on the emotional thoughts and letting them dissipate a little bit. Then I want you to turn over a fresh slate and start analysing.
Okay.
But if you're not analysing, you're not playing poker. You're clicking buttons and you're losing money and you're gambling and you're being a degenerate. Not quite a degenerate, I'm going a bit far, but you know, you're playing like a recreational player at that point. And you've studied too much. You're too invested and you're too bright a guy and you're too serious a student to go down that road. You have put too much work in and you can do so much better. I know you can. And that's why it's so important to interrupt those thoughts. So what I would say for homework is to actually dig out a few hands for next time where you have successfully carried out an exploitative fold. I want to see more of this. I don't just want to see one. I want to see like 3 or 4 of them. And I don't want you to force it. I don't want you to do it in spots where you don't think it's a fold. But where you're torn, I want you to silence this emotional thought process, analyze, and come up with the fold in underbluffed spots with a bluff catcher. Right, let's move on. Queen 3. Calling, it's good. Against pot, I would just call here. I would simplify to not building any raises here, I think. You could build some raises. I don't think it's necessary anymore. So we get to the river. Thought process here, please, for this hand.
My thought process is that I've obviously called 2 streets and this is close to the bottom of my range. I didn't have any showdown value. So when he checks to me, I think I'm going to bluff with this hand quite a lot. Okay,
that was great until you completely ruined it at the end. What did you do at the end that ruined that thought process? What were the last 3 words you said? You said 3 words. Right, unpack that for me. Why is that problematic?
I think it's always, always bluff here. Yeah.
Would you roll check here in game? Honestly, would you?
I don't think so. No, I think it was just a poor choice of words.
Okay, so let's stop saying that then, because we're actually implying that we're allowed to do terrible things at some frequency. We're not allowed to do terrible things at any frequency. Don't ever open 8-7 off under the gun. It's always losing. Don't ever do it. Yeah, don't do it 5% of the time. Don't do it 1% of the time. Do it never. So yes, we are in a favourable world, is how I'd explain it. Our EV for our range is higher than that of villains because we have called a bet. We've called 2 bets actually. We have very little air on this node. We have a little bit of like 9-7. We have some spades, but many of our spades have hit the ace. We have 6x. We have ace-x to value bet with here. Ace-x of spades. We have plenty of value and we want to be value betting. Of course, checking here is a mistake. Sizing wise, I mean, I'm not sure this is necessary. Okay, so you could have this in your, I guess if you had a 6 here, you would quite fancy the sizing. So I guess you're saying you have a 6 on this node and you do block queen 6, I guess, if villain's getting tricky with that. So maybe this is fine, but I'm interested in your thoughts behind the overbet. I don't think it's a problem. I don't think you have to overbet though. So why did you overbet?
Well, villain has a... sorry, I just wanted to put villain all in. That's all.
Oh, I'm being dumb. Sorry, I didn't see that he only had 28. Okay, that's just me being an idiot. Let's move on. Cool. Aces, 3-bet. 10-9-4. Check. Big bet's good. Big nut advantage. This is fine. Raise. Okay. Tell me the shape of this range and think back to last week's episode as you do.
This is more merged. I probably previously thought about. So this is jacks, queens, 10, kings, queens.
Kings probably not kings. Probably not kings.
Yeah.
Probably 4 bets kings pre.
Yeah.
So it does have sets in it, and it does have some bluffs in it, but it also has mergey hands. If this is a recreational player, and a lot of the people in your pool are, and if we go back to pre-flop here, I don't know, we don't have any sizing or stack size clues at this point, but I don't know, do you know if this is a reg or not?
I have 250 hands and they're 22-20, which is pretty reggy. I know it's small, but the gap between VP, VPIP and PA4 is very small.
So it could be a reg. Even if it's a reg, like there'll still be some jacks and queens and draws and things like this. So in position with ace of spades, I guess call is okay. Shove is probably okay as well. I think this is like relatively close, but yeah, shove is definitely an okay play. Then we end up on the 10 of clubs turn. Villain bets small. Why do these hands have to come up? I mean, they're just so painful and also just so like irrelevant because there's so much money in the pot here. So like I get if you have a thought process of you have quads or nines, you moron, I hate you, I'm gonna lose my stack to you here. I don't blame you for having that thought process when a bet like this gets made because it's like small bet here will be some people's choice with the immortal nuts. It's just how they're gonna choose to go. When, you know, if they have king jack of spades here, pretty tempting just to jam if you're going to bluff, yeah? King queen of spades, pretty tempting to jam if you're going to bluff. But yeah, I think that it can still be queens, it can still be jacks or something like that as well, and it could still be some kind of draw. I wouldn't fold here, but you can, safe to say I'm not very pleased with life at this point. Now the question arises, what is going on and how should we analyze this spot?
So we've called a check raise, we've called a turn, small turn bet, and now they jam the rest of it in. I think it's under bluffed. I think that line is under bluffed in my population.
Do you know what the big brother of under bluffed is?
The big brother is chronically under bluffed.
Unbluffed.
Unbluffed.
That's when it's so extreme that we can almost just say it's like we can actually almost use the N word, the never. Never and always, the N word and the A word as I call them. Yeah. Scary words in poker, we don't normally want to use them, but in this case, we probably can consider it. So yeah, underbluffed is true. So we have to be beating value bets now or merges in order to want to invest. How many of them do you think exist?
I don't think king queen that bluffed to this point and hits a king, I think just checks and hopes to get the showdown. I
would think so. I mean it's very spewy to like shove king queen on this node like after this action sequence. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Maybe some people they'll just hope you have jacks and they'll do it, but I think it's a bad play for sure.
They're a reg, so I can't discount all bluffs. You know, I can't say they don't bluff here.
Well, we just said that, didn't we?
Yeah.
So why can't you? What am I missing then? What do you think they're bluffing with here that I'm missing then, if you're saying they can be bluffing? What hand exists that is air here? Or even close to air?
Miss flush draws.
No, come on, you need to be specific. This is way too vague. This is why you end up being a calling station. This is why episode 2 is called He's a Station. You've got to be careful here. Miss spades, you have the ace of spades, and the king of spades just hit a pair. Queen jack of spades is a straight. What are we on about here? What does that mean? Miss spades. There's none. Zilch. Nada. If I spoke more languages, I would say more zeros in other languages. I don't. So we are facing zero bluffs practically. Okay. Maybe he is a genius and he knows how to like somehow. I don't even think like the best players in the world bluff enough here. I think this is one of these spots where if you've raised flop in a 3-bet pot and bet turn and then this run out comes, I think some of the absolute crushers out there are under bluffing this node as well. I really do. So no, I'm going to say that this is chronically underbluffed or maybe even bordering on unbluffed. Your word and my word. Both are good. So then we have to be beating like a significant number of merges / value bets to call. So this looks like a hero fold that most people are incapable of making. Absolutely. I think I might even just call off here in game because I suck. And I'm just going to be like, no, I can't. Why? I can't do it. So see if we can just sort of rise to the occasion in this spot and say, okay, all of my cold-blooded analysis tells me I have to fold here. You will make a really good fold against a reg here. If this is a weaker player, I'm not folding, right? There's too much merging going on, there's too much bad play. If this is a regular though, I am folding here. So if you're confident in your read that this is not some horrible player, I would absolutely fold here. Because like an average reg will just be never bluffing and barely betting anything worse.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can redeem myself. I guess the last one wrong. Nines. He surprised me on the turn with that. I was expecting it just to be jammed in your games if he had something like Queen Jack. But yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, you played it fine up until the river. I'm not gonna like shout at you for calling here because I think most people would call here. But I do think when you do the cold-blooded analysis, we can get away from the lazy, sort of bratish, shirking responsibility attitude of I was coolered with aces. Saying that you're coolered with aces here is a massive cop-out in my opinion, and it's one that we should avoid. You guys watching this, you should ditch cooler from your poker vocabulary for good. Alright, last hand for the day. This one is really cool. I just looked at this. It's another really nice illustration of what we're really working on today, which is relative hand strength. We have tens, 3-bet, villain calls, 9-9-3 two-tone comes. We decide to start by checking here. Okay, what is your thought process on the flop here? Like, just help me understand where you're at in this hand, like in real time here when you're playing it. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking tens is a high frequency bet, and I think I rolled very low. So I think I'm mixing, but it's like 90% or something that I'm betting here. And I rolled like, I remember the hand, I rolled like 7 or 8.
So
I would bet a lot here on this.
Was this guy full stacked? No. So if you check tens here and you face a small bet like this, You're going to be against the merge range, yeah?
Yep.
So what do you think comes onto the menu here? What kind of play might come onto the menu here against the Fish's merge range? Yeah. So raise here could just be a really good idea. I think people will bet way too much with like 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, like this kind of region. They'll have some jacks and queens as well sometimes, but if this is late position, raise is like really good. You have the right suit to block all of the 10-9 suited, which is kind of cool, right? You have the 2 suits that do that. Yeah, raise is my forefront play here that I'm going towards. So this call is, I don't want to say too passive because that's arbitrary, but I think when villain is a weaker player who's merging a lot here, raising jacks, 10s, and queens is kind of like a given. I just want to do that, I think, out of position. Remember, your urgency to put money into the pot will increase when you're out of position if villain bets, because a check and then another check will take you all the way to the river. We check, he bets big. Now we need to decide what we want to do. At low SPRs, we do a lot of jam, yeah? Like in this sort of situation, there's not much money left. I wouldn't fold here. I think our hand is too good.
It felt indifferent. It felt yuck, but
it's not indifferent. I mean, the fish is probably betting to merge still. I would imagine there's like 8s and 7s in here that shouldn't be in things like that and some bluffs. I don't think this is a fold against a random recreational unless you know they're passive. Then it maybe becomes a fold. I think in game theory, you're right. You should be quite indifferent here, but I would just expect the fish to bet a bit too often with like some mergy hands that I beat. So yeah, with so little left behind, it is close. I think all 3 plays are like fairly close, but I think I'd go with either call or jam here if I didn't know the player, because they can just be a bit too loose pre, a bit too pocket pair heavy here, maybe too many like ace queen off with a spade, that sort of thing. I think I'd probably jam here, but I'm not loving life at all, I have to say. I agree with you that it's not great. So we face the triples. This is a completely different node. What has happened to our hand now? Like, what do you think the difference is between having 10s now on the river and, you know, how we were assessing it on the flop?
I think we have a bluff catcher now.
Right, I agree. Did you think that in game? Did you go into that, or are you not quite like getting?
Yeah, I did.
You did. Okay.
I now I have a bluff catcher. Yeah,
now you have a bluff catcher. Yeah, I agree. So what should you do next then, once you've established that fact?
I should assess whether this is an underbluffed or overbluffed node. I think assessing this now, obviously it's a triple barrel, which is underbluffed maybe in the population, but it's also the board is. There's a lot of air, there's a lot of overcards here, maybe that can bluff. There's no broadways on the board, so there's a lot of, I think this may be overbluffed relative to all triple barrels in my pool.
Okay, so that doesn't mean anything. Relative to all other triple barrels is arbitrary. What we care about is it overbluffed compared to how much of his range is a bluff or underbluffed. You can't say overbluffed compared to other triple barrels because that doesn't tell us whether it's actually overbluffed or underbluffed.
No,
right?
it doesn't.
That's not a great comparison. Yeah. But I think up until then, your thought process is quite healthy, like the structure of it is quite good. And I think in this spot, we need to factor in a few things. One is just that villain has bet 3 times, right? Like triple barrels from weaker players are typically not overbluffed in like mass data. I don't want to share too many mass data things for free on YouTube because I run courses on it and stuff. It's really valuable, but I will obviously coach you because we're here on it. And mass data tells us that triple barrels are typically only overbluffed from recreationals when we're in a very wide pre-flop configuration, like small blind, button, big blind, blind versus blind, that kind of thing. Under the gun against small blind 3-bet pot, like no, I wouldn't say so, not at all. So I think mass data would just be enough here to say it's not overbluffed, even on this texture. I agree with you though, that this is a texture that may be a bit more bluffed than others, but I don't think this is overbluffed. You have 10s without a spade, you block some overcards, you don't block any flushes. I think you've got a bad bluff catcher. I think it's a slightly underbluffed node. It's another, I think, excellent, good, yes. But yet you thought it was overbluffed in analysis, so it's kind of weird. Did you not think it was overbluffed in game then? Like, why did you fold in game? Because after that thought process, I was fully expecting you to call there. So what was going on?
I think I just had in the front of my head, I have a bluff catcher and I need to learn how to fold bluff catcher.
Excellent. Okay, that's good. So I'd rather you over-adjusted and did that. That's fine though, it's a good fold. I really like the fold actually as played. I would raise the flop and I would get my money in there. But as played against this line, unless the guy looks like, if the guy looks like a maniac and he's really loose and really wide, you do have to call down here for sure. But if this is a normal looking player that's just not like been that active, then I think fold is good here. So yeah, I think this is a good job by you. Good one to finish on. It's the first time we've actually made a fold in one of these big pots. I'm sure you've done others, but it's the first one on the series that we've seen. It's really encouraging. Although this one is fairly close, I think this is like really encouraging to see. And I just urge you to keep considering your relative hand strength. Keep asking that question when you're facing a bet. Keep paying attention to the hoops villains jump through, as you put it very eloquently, to get to that spot, the board texture, all of these factors, and keep assessing relative hand strength. That has been our focus today. should be you guys focused at home watching this as well. And we'll see you for episode 5 next week of From Losing to Cruising. Anything to add, Mark, before I sign out?
No, listen, I've got some really strong practical sort of pointers there, so I'm looking forward to getting back to the tables and trying to put it into practice. So thanks for that. It's great.
Cool. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye for me. Bye for Mark. Bye for now.